Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Eleni Anastas, and you are here with us for another episode of Lessons for Life. And tonight's topic is worthiness. But before we dive into that, I want to introduce my talented and wonderful co-host, Jim Kunkel. How are you tonight, Jim?
Eleni, happy Monday. I'm having a great time tonight.
Awesome. I'm so glad you're here because we both know, especially, this is such an important topic. Well, and first and foremost, I want to say up front, thank you so much. There were so many people that reached out to us, that engaged with us live, and then reached out afterwards to share your comments and questions. And we truly appreciate that. So please keep them coming. We respond to every single person. And if ever anything comes up that you'd like to go further in depth with, please don't hesitate to reach out to either one of us. So tonight's all-important topic and Lessons for Life, it's the next chapter in my book. And the title of this chapter is Worthiness. And I knew I had to dedicate a chapter to that in my book because worthiness is something that impacts everyone, and it impacts every area of your life, personal, professional, and it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what your current station in life is. It's not about external circumstances. It's a sense of worthiness that truly, when you build a foundation on that, it can make all the difference in the world. How do you view worthiness, Jim?
Oh, I completely agree with you. And to also let everyone know that you can get your own copy of My Reinvented Life. It's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Please, after the broadcast, just visit Amazon, go to Barnes & Noble, and make sure you pick up your own copy. It's a great book. But, for me, a sense of worthiness is really, the way I view it is my acceptance of for myself, my imperfections, my shortcomings, and then also to my feelings, how adequate do I feel? And also I recognize, the positive qualities that I can contribute to others and also to myself or to a certain situation. And then another aspect of it too, is that I really want to try to be morally good. And, I want to have, be a virtuous person. I want to show a lot of worth and merit and value. And the one thing that I really am not looking for is praise. But I do encourage people that, for someone like myself or anyone, when we're talking about worthiness, it's good to acknowledge and point out that and to kind of support the behavior when it comes to worthiness as well. So that's kind of my thoughts, Eleni.
Yes. Well, I appreciate that you first started with the self-acceptance without question. Because again, regardless of what's going on in your life, maybe you're in the middle of dealing with something. Maybe you're riding high on all cylinders and everything is going well. You still have to accept yourself in totality. And when I first started diving into self-worth, worthiness, I was really starting to take stock on all the ways that I would honor myself. And to me, honoring myself is the self-acceptance, is showing respect for my skills, for my abilities, for what I'm trying to do for myself and in the world. But I was surprised at all of the little subtle ways that I wasn't necessarily honoring myself. And many people can chalk that up. They might say, oh, that's, it's insignificant. That doesn't matter. But time after time, if you're not honoring yourself, even in those seemingly insignificant moments, that can add up. And to me, that erodes your foundation of worthiness. And I want to share a quick little story that I also share in the book. I was at a business conference and met a lot of, interesting people. And at the end of the first day, it was time for dinner. And somebody I met at the conference, we decided to dine together. We went to a nice restaurant in the hotel. I remember vividly ordering my portobello mushroom sandwich because it clearly said thick like steak. I am a carnivore, but that looked good to me. It was brought to me and it was more like thin like paper, not thick like steak. So I called the server over And I said, first of all, you've been wonderful. You've been kind, but this does not at all reflect what's described on the menu. And I asked her to take it back. She said, do you want them to prepare another one? I said, no, bring me the menu. I'll choose something else. I did that. And the manager had come over and apologized, offered to buy us dessert. And we went on with our conversation, enjoyed a nice meal together, pleasant conversation. And when it was time to pay the bill, my dining companion said, thank you. And I thought, why is she thanking me? She said, thank you for sending that food back. And I kind of looked at her and she said, I would never have done that. I would have just eaten it and been disappointed. It's okay. I'll just take it. It's okay. I'll settle for that. And when you do that time and time again, it's okay, I'll just take it, to me, that starts to erode away at your foundation of worthiness. Because when you really honor yourself, you don't have to be okay with, oh, it's okay, let's just accept it.
Yeah.
When we tolerate less than we desire and deserve, how is that going to impact the rest of our lives? Because I believe without question, the tolerations that we continue to accept in our life are going to become guides, roadmaps for how other people can treat us. Would you agree?
Oh, I completely agree with that. And the other thing too, I'd like to point out that, worthiness it's not the same as self-esteem, and we really derive our self-esteem from, our abilities of accomplishments and our social positions and things that we can believe that we can achieve. And we can bolster our own self-esteem by really improving our skills, our performance, and our self-esteem goes up and down depending on how we're doing in various aspects of our life. So we want to make sure that, worthiness is one thing, and then also self-esteem is a separate thing. They might kind of interact, but they're not one and the same. So I wanted to point that out too, because I think that's an important distinction.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we had a comment from David.
Yes, let me bring it up.
I wanted to see that. We are worthy, and the more we act on bettering ourselves, we activate worthiness. Yes. Because again, the foundation, thank you, David, having that foundation of worthiness, it doesn't mean you don't have to learn and grow and evolve. But again, it's the foundation, and we're going to keep building on that. And that's what matters most. And can I share another quick story?
Yes, please.
Happens to be from the same conference. So that was a little bit of a gold mine. I have a neck situation. I had herniated discs in my neck, and it makes it uncomfortable for me to sit all day. So I wanted to make sure that I had a seat in the conference. It was in one of those hotel ballrooms with the big round tables where I could sit facing the stage without having to twist, my neck. And they made it very clear that there were no assigned seats. You couldn't get in there early to save seats. And I was fine with that. So I made sure I was the first one in line every morning. I got there an hour before the conference started. And I'm fine with that because I'm taking care of myself. I did not expect any special treatment. And two ladies were also there with me, right behind me each morning. And we became fast friends. We walked in, we chose our center table. I could sit head on. Second day, met the same two lovely ladies. We sat at the same table. Third day, again, I was the first one in line because I was there an hour early. The doors open, we walked in to sit at the table we wanted to, and I saw somebody had their belongings over a few of the seats where we were sitting. I thought, well, that's strange because I was literally the first person in the room. And this attorney comes over and he said, Eleni, you can't sit there. I'm saving those seats for Julie. She's going to be an hour late. I said, actually, I can sit there, and I am. He said, no, you can't. I'm saving them from Julie. She's going to be an hour late. Well, I was here an hour early, so I should not get to choose my seat because someone else is going to be an hour late. I said, no. And they said, you cannot save seats. And he finally grabbed his belongings and moved them. But in the meantime, the two ladies I was with got up and started to move away. I said, no, get back here, sit down. We're staying here. Even though the attorney and I went a few rounds of, you can't sit there. Yes, I can. And I am. And to me, that's a direct connection to a sense of worthiness, because there were countless years where I would have just, all right, grabbed my stuff and grudgingly moved to another table and been disappointed, or, eaten the food I didn't want and been disappointed. And then, as my mom used to say, you would have been stewing in your own juices.
Yeah.
You would have been upset and frustrated about it. And again, if we keep tolerating things that are less than we desire and deserve, I think our foundation of worthiness goes out the window. So I literally remember asking myself at one point in time, am I not worthy of something better? That was like a wake-up call. Am I not worthy of something better? Like, wow. So I had to wake myself up.
Yeah. And the other thing too is, with worthiness, you really don't want to compare your sense of worthiness to others, because worthiness is really, it's unique to you. It's specific to you. And that's what's so important with you. And it's really, when you think of it, it's something that, we can have more or less of, but unconditional self-worth is a sense that you really think about it when you deserve to be alive, to be loved, to be cared for, and to exist. And so that is very unique to you and very specific to you. So that's an important thing. But I do love that story, because I would probably have done the same thing, Eleni. But, now where I'm kind of at in my mindset, I would probably do the same thing too, because you did everything right and someone's going to be late. So why should they benefit where you get penalized for doing what's right?
Yes. And the two ladies I was sitting with, they both thanked me for standing my ground, because they said we never could have done that. And I appreciated their words, but at the same time, it almost made me a little sad that they would have just again accepted and moved away when they had the right to sit where they wanted to sit, especially since they were in the room first. And it goes back to, to me, you're never going to regret standing up for yourself. Never. It's not going to be easy. I think it takes a lot of courage to stand up for yourself, but it's so vital. When you get stuck in that, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. If you find yourself saying that a lot, whether it's a professional situation or a personal situation, you can't build a fulfilling life based on tolerations. Tolerations and fulfillment, to me, don't occupy the same space. What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And another thing to really think about with worthiness is, once you've got that worthiness engaged, you're at that peak level of worthiness in life. As everyone and anyone, we all encounter setbacks. We all fall, we fail, but that shouldn't diminish your worthiness. Your worthiness should still be at that optimum level. And then when these setbacks happen, they're learning opportunities. They're just part of life, and you have to be able to deal with them without affecting or impacting your worthiness.
Yes.
And by doing that, you're going to be a better person moving forward, because you're going to accept that setback or that failure. You're going to learn from it, and you're going to do something different so that you do not encounter that again. But your self-worth is still very high.
Yes, I so appreciate how you made the differentiation between the two, because stuff happens. That proverbial shit's going to hit the fan sometime or another. There's going to be obstacles. There's going to be challenges, but it never at any point in time means you are not worthy of something better. Again, for me, I catch myself, if I get stuck in that, it's okay, because that toleration, too much so, is going to bleed out into other areas of your life without question. Like, it's okay, I'm not earning more, my work is meaningful. I promise you, there is a direct link between net worth and self-worth. A direct link between net worth and self-worth. And I work on this with clients often, because imagine if you don't feel worthy, and you're there in a sales conversation, how confident are you going to be? Or if you don't feel worthy about what you bring to the table, how are you going to justify being adequately compensated? And I see far too many people, especially entrepreneurs, that are undercharging and over delivering because of that sense of worthiness or lack thereof. They haven't built that foundation. So if you're finding yourself saying, it's okay, you have to look at how much you're tolerating. And I want to quickly bring that around to a personal level as well. I was listening to a client say, I think it's okay that my significant other doesn't support my aspirations, whether it's professional or personal. It's okay because he's honest, because I can trust him. It's okay. Now, what is important to you is important to you. You should have your own list of priorities. No argument there. But going back to it's okay and tolerating, because I think people deserve to be celebrated, not tolerated. So if you find yourself just being tolerated, ask the question. In this situation, am I being tolerated or am I being celebrated? I think that's a good wake-up call for people as well.
That is definitely a good wake-up call. So, Elaine, can we talk about, how to increase self-worth? And the first thing that came to my mind is you really want to be able to forgive yourself. We struggle through so many things, and that does impact that worthiness. And like I say, you really want to try to have these setbacks not impact your worthiness. You have to really learn to overcome that. Because we get angry with ourselves and we kind of wallow in those past mistakes, and they as you always said, they rent space in our head, but they also rent space in our life, and they impact us, especially if we allow it to affect our self-worth or worthiness. Why is it so difficult? Let me just say, it's kind of a personal question in a way, or your feelings on it. Why is it so hard for people to kind of disconnect that, where they're angry, they fault themselves, they can't forgive themselves, but it just impacts that worthiness or that self-worth. Why does that happen, do you think?
Yes. Well, I think it's the cliche that we probably all learned at a very young age, that we're always going to be our own worst critics or our own harshest critics. And this is where, toleration should be, accepted. Because to me, we always need to look at the intentions behind the actions. Now, you did something that didn't work out. You made a mistake, or you made a choice that ended up in negative results. Who hasn't? We all have, personally and professionally. But if your intentions, and this is easier said than done, but if your intentions behind those actions were to move forward in a positive way, then I think that's the first step to self-acceptance, which then allows us to forgive, because we always know it's so much easier. It's so much easier to support other people than it is what we see in the mirror. Louise Hay, who I, adored and admired all her work in the personal development arena, she has done so much work about self-acceptance. And in fact, she had a book out years ago, and it's still being sold regularly, about mirror work, where she encourages people to look in the mirror. It's so much easier for people to say, I love and accept you to someone else than when they're looking in the mirror. And that, to me, once you can make it through that, where you can love and accept yourself like you would anybody else that matters to you, whether it's family, friends, then we have the best possible chance of creating that life, of sustaining that worthiness.
Yeah, that's what I had on my second talking point for you, is to talk about practice self-acceptance, and you hit it without us even really talking about it. The other thing I think that's really important is that when you think about it, the one person that has to be there for you is you. And if you are not there for yourself, it's not going to work. So you really have to be there for yourself.
Yes. Oh, I'm so glad you said that. Exactly. And we have to deal with what we see in the mirror. And we can love and accept ourselves while still being a work in progress. So you did make a mistake. So you did make a decision that yielded negative results. Again, who hasn't? But if you can say, I love myself even though, and this happened, it's accepting ourselves holistically. Because when I talk about worthiness, and I know when you do this as well, we're not saying it's all good, we're golden. Fast forward, no, we're never going to have to deal with anything. No. I think of you build a house, right? And you want your foundation more than anything to be solid, rock solid. So you build that solid foundation, and then you continue to add to it, the structure and whatnot. Now, does that prevent storms from coming through? Absolutely not. Just like having that foundation of worthiness doesn't mean you're not going to have problems. You're not going to have issues. You're not going to be scared. But when you have that foundation, it means you can stay standing, just like your house can stay standing in the storm when it's built on a solid foundation.
Yeah, and David brings up a good point here about, listening to our self-talk. As we are a friend to ourselves, we are negative or critical.
That's an excellent point. Thank you so much for bringing that up, David. Yes. And again, the energy we put out is going to come back to us, and energy flows where our attention goes. And I appreciate, when you said, we're the ones that are always going to be with us.
Mm-hmm.
We're the ones that we can't ever get away from. We can't ever get away from ourselves, even though people have tried. So having that self-acceptance, expressing that love, caring about yourself, it's not about ego. It is about what matters most, your intrinsic value and worth. And again, I believe you deserve to be celebrated, not just tolerated.
Yeah, and in addition to being there for yourself, you do want to seek out and you want to find supportive people, because we are a creature of community, and we need others to be around us, to communicate with, to interact with, to really kind of grow with others as well. So that's important too, that connection with supportive people. And sometimes they become readily available, and sometimes we have to seek them out. And sometimes they can be people who you wouldn't even really expect to be supportive. And that's really important to really find those supportive people out there that are either in your family, friends, or work associates.
That's huge. I'm so glad you brought that up. I mean, that is truly huge. In fact, I was reading some longevity studies, and these are all people that were making it into triple digits. And besides their diet and exercise, it was the sense of community. They all had, you can picture, the 5 old men sitting out at the coffee shop, sitting outside talking every day into their 80s, 90s. And that's why they made it into triple digits. That sense of connection is vital for all of us. And I really want to reinforce, especially after these last 3.5 years and the first 2 that were so isolating. If you have felt so alone, if you have ended up feeling even more withdrawn, please reach out for some type of support or connection. There are agencies, there are people that can help, that want to help, because none of us are meant to go through life alone. And I really want to reinforce that nothing is wrong with you because you're seeking support. It just means you're human. Connection matters to us all. So please don't hesitate to reach out for support when you need to.
And Rob has a question here. What if you keep trying to better yourself, but at the end you get burned? How do you succeed but are afraid of failing again?
Ooh, that's a great question.
It is.
And Rob, I'm going to assume, so please correct me if I'm wrong, when you talk about, but at the end you get burned, that this is someone else that did not treat you fairly or appropriately. Obviously, I'm not asking for details, but I'm assuming it's someone from the outside, whether it's in the workplace or on a personal level. Because that, to me, first of all, it's a great question, and thank you for sharing, because it takes, again, guts to work on yourself. It's work to try to improve yourself. And to me, it's something that's vital for all of us. We should always be growing. We should always be evolving. We're never done. We're never finished. So I appreciate that comment, but if it's something negative that impact you, whether it's on the job or on a personal level, and said, yes, so on the job, that you've put into the work to better yourself, at least that's something that you can take with you. I know that's easier said than done, because you keep building that foundation of worthiness. And I think that resilience also grows with worthiness. You're able to come back and deal with it, because as cliche as it sounds, and I say this with all due respect, rarely is it about us. When you're the person that's been quote unquote done wrong, again, whether it's on the job or personally, it's the majority of the time the other person's issues. The saying that hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
So it's vital to keep, you're putting in the effort, Rob, to better yourself, to keep growing. And I think each time then something like that does happen, that you're not going to be taken off your game as much. I hope that makes sense. It's like when physical fitness, you keep working to improve your fitness level, and you get that heart rate cranked up, and the assessment of physical fitness of how fit you are is how quickly your heart rate comes back down to normal. And if you are solid, if you're in great shape, that heart rate comes back down quickly, no problem.
I would probably, the way I look at it, and I always use this when I describe related to your confidence, your worthiness, and things like that, is that you have to be that rock that's in that rushing stream, and you have to let all that fast moving water just flow over top of you, surround you, go around you, but it doesn't move you. And it's difficult because you have a lot of things happen, and sometimes failures or situations can happen in a string. You can get a series of things that happen. You have to be able to process that, and you have to be able not to let it impact your worthiness. You have to be able to just process it and try to turn it into something positive and move ahead, because that's what life's all about. Life's about sometimes setbacks and a lot of good things and sometimes some bad things. But our history is full of people who have faced major difficulties. And, I was reading some Holocaust survivor stories and things like this. And I come to mind and say, my life, I might have some issues or challenges, but there are people out there in history and even currently today that have it far worse than I do. And you hear their stories and you see their strength of how they overcame and move forward. And I think that really helps motivate us to do better. Let me bring up another comment we have here too. Change is a catalyst for growth. It's scary, but it's really is having the courage to take the leap. That's it, that leap of faith.
Take it, exactly. And I so appreciate your analogy, the rock in the river. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, and to Rob's question and comment as well, that one thing that helps me move forward, because if you try to resist, like, I'm not going to let that get to me, I'm not going to let that bother me, they can't get to me, that which we resist persists. So it's all right, as you say, let's look at this, let's accept it. I always ask myself, what is this here to teach me? Now, that doesn't mean in any way, shape, or form you deserved to be treated wrong, that you deserved any kind of disrespect. I don't mean that at all. But I always look at, what can I learn from this? Because if I look at it as a learning situation, then it's not a loss. It's not the best outcome I originally wanted, but it's never a complete loss to me as long as I'm learning. And that helps me to move forward as well.
Oh, very good. Very good. And Eleni, we're coming up on the bottom of the hour here, and next Monday's topic is going to be a really awesome. It's about abundance, and I'm really looking forward to that conversation we're going to have on Monday. Looks like we have another comment here, Rob. I've always bettered myself. I'm very proud to say that I've earned every opportunity I've ever gotten. Very
It's
good.
Awesome. Yes.
Yeah,
See,
perfect.
and regardless of how they work out, you are still better for it, for the experience. So, kudos to you. You made me think of something that's something my grandfather said to me and I'll say this quickly. He said, always get an education, Eleni, whether it's formal or otherwise. He said, because it's one of the only things that no one can ever steal from you. They can steal your money, they can steal your car, they can steal your job. But once you have that education and that knowledge, that's yours to keep, even if you don't stay in that situation. So that, to me, you build your foundation of worthiness, you keep learning and growing. No one can ever take that away from you.
Perfect. Eleni, how can people connect with you, follow you?
Yes. Please don't hesitate to reach out. You can connect with me here on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. Everything is branded under my own name. You can also find me at elenianastas.com. Don't hesitate to reach out there. Again, if you have any questions or comments or just want to have a discussion about maybe how you can increase your own foundation of worthiness or things you can do to move forward in your professional life, happy to have that conversation. And Jim, where should our folks find you?
Well, before we do that, our friend Carl Davenport, he really likes to write very good comments here. At the risk of repeating myself or being redundant, my sense of being worthy comes from faith. Without the personal connection with God or personal relationship with God, you're going to be disappointed. Specifically, that sense of worth directed towards yourself. Your sins are forgiven. Move on in strength.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that, Carl. Yes, we are worthy. We are born worthy simply because of who we are. Thank you again so much. That's a perfect comment.
And how people can contact me or follow me, the best place is on LinkedIn. If you do me a favor, you can send me a connection request and I will accept that. And also, too, if you get a chance, go to my profile on LinkedIn, click on events, and take a look at some of the upcoming audio and also live streams and other content I have coming out on LinkedIn.
Yes. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. And thank you to those that will be catching the replay. We hope to see you next Monday at 7 p.m. when we talk about abundance. Thanks again, everyone. Have a good evening.
Goodbye, everybody.